At the age of 32, Alexander the Great controlled an empire of a scale the ancient world had never seen. This map tracks a path of geographic expansion that reached the borders of 3 continents in little more than a decade. Along the way, his military campaigns shattered the mighty Persian Empire, bringing rival kings to their knees. His authority became absolute. When he arrived in Egypt, the civilization accepted him as pharaoh. Pushed by his own ambition, he drove his forces all the way to the extreme geographical edges of India. The sheer speed of this expansion was his greatest military weapon. He achieved in mere years what established dynasties often failed to do over centuries. But moving that quickly left a dangerously untested infrastructure in its wake. Rapid imperial growth carries a hidden cost. When you absorb new territories, they immediately require complex administration, cultural integration, and political continuity to survive. In 323 BCE, Alexander set up his court in Babylon. The sprawling city sat near the center of his new realm, intended to serve as the secure, administrative capital for his upcoming global campaigns. Then, a sudden fever took hold. The commander, who had survived countless battles, rapidly lost his strength and his ability to command. Within a few short days, he was dead. A profound paralysis gripped the ancient world. Armies entered a state of mourning, while officials desperately scrambled to understand what had just happened to their chain of command. Alexander had conquered the world, but by failing to name a mature successor, he left his massive empire without a future. The accounts of his deathbed describe a chaotic scene. When asked who should inherit the empire, an enduring historical rumor suggests Alexander gave a simple, devastating reply: to the strongest. That concept instantly triggered the mechanics of a power vacuum. Without a single, unifying leader up atop, the entire command structure lost its center of gravity. The empire was now entirely surrounded by elite generals and regional governors. All of them possessed immense influence, loyal armies, and intense personal ambitions. At first, they attempted to negotiate. They proposed temporary arrangements and political agreements. But as the stakes grew, trust vanished entirely. A unified military force proves highly fragile when its stability relies solely on the personal authority of one irreplaceable man, rather than an established system of law. The ensuing decades became known as the Wars of the Diadochi, the Wars of the Successors. Former allies turned their weapons against each other in brutal, multi-generational conflicts. Spanning 3 continents, the empire contained highly diverse languages, cultures, and traditions. Without Alexander's singular influence to bridge them, those differences became impossible to manage. Regional governors stopped fighting for a unified world. They began prioritizing local wealth and resources, minting their own currencies to fund their own regional ambitions. Every attempt to preserve the unified empire gradually collapsed. Old alliances completely shattered under the heavy weight of unchecked ambition and mounting paranoia. The massive scale and diversity of the empire had been Alexander's greatest triumph. Now it became the exact mechanism of its rapid fragmentation. Looking at the political map following these conflicts, the final result is clear. The unified territory broke apart into independent powers. In Egypt, a former general established the Ptolemaic kingdom, securing a dynasty for centuries. Across Asia, another successor created the vast Seleucid Empire. Meanwhile, Macedon and Greece were left to forge their own chaotic political paths under a series of competing rulers. Yet, his cultural legacy survived through Hellenistic ideas and architecture, and established trade networks continued moving across these new regional borders. The physical empire collapsed almost instantly after his death, but the world he reshaped continued to evolve culturally, independent of his political control. Historians continue to debate whether the empire could have survived if Alexander had lived long enough to build clear institutions and a defined line of succession. The collapse reveals a specific institutional fragility. While the empire appeared unstoppable under Alexander, it lacked the durable systems required to survive the absence of its founder. Statecraft requires 2 very different disciplines. Conquering an empire demands military brilliance. Preserving an empire requires the unglamorous, methodical work of institutional planning. Without a solid institutional foundation beneath it, even the most monumental human achievements are inevitably erased by time. Endurance is the final metric of power. Alexander conquered the world, but by failing to build a system larger than himself, the future of his empire died with him.